little more refreshed with another hour of sleep, or did y'all wake up at the same time?
Same time.
Archie, would you lead us with the word there before we start this morning?
Father God, thank you so much for this time we have done work that you've done to it. Thank you for this beautiful weather you give us to enjoy here. Heavenly Father. We want to thank you for all the blessings you gave us here on this earth, Heavenly Father. We realize they're on temporary, will soon pass away. But we're looking forward to that home in heaven that you prepared for us if we live down faithful. We pray you'll be around this morning as we prepare the lesson. May he have the things ready that he needs to say, Heavenly Father, that we may listen and take it to our hearts, Heavenly Father. We ask you to be with each and every one here this morning, Heavenly Father. Be with the ones that are sick, bring them back to the health once again. We want the spirit of sick with us this morning, Heavenly Father. We pray that they will come forward and come back to you once again. We ask you, Heavenly Father, Lord, see this part of the service. Till the end of time, we will find faithful to take us home to you in heaven. We say we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
I've been thinking a lot lately about a certain thing that, I know we gather around the table when we commune with the Lord and remember his sacrifice for us. And I just started thinking about what do we do every day during the week and the thoughts that we have about Christ and the suffering, the pain, and the anguish, that we caused him. And do we think about all the sacrifices that he's made for us? Not just that horrible day on the cross, but all the times leading up to that and even afterwards. So let's go to John 1 through 14. I know Joe has used this a lot when he's talking about things. Someone read that, please. John 1 through 14.
In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the light that was the light of men. The light shines in darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. He came as witness, to bear witness about the light, that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but came to bear witness about the light. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who was born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth.
So I know you talked about this before. Fair to say that Christ Jesus has been here from the beginning, right? So you ever thought about that? The fact that he was here from the beginning and yet he knew everything also and knew that at some point in time he was going to come to earth, walk this earth, preach, and then be accused of wrongful things and cruelly put to death on that cross. But yet he chose to come down from heaven to do that for us. So not only do you know that what was going to happen, but it was prophesied in the Old Testament also. Let's go to Isaiah 53. 1 through 9. Someone read that, please. Isaiah 53, 1 through 9.
Who has believed our message? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he who grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of parched ground. He has no stately form or majesty that we should look upon him, nor appearance that we should be attracted to him. He was despised and forsaken of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and like one from whom men hide their face. He was despised, and we did not esteem him. Surely our griefs he himself bore, and our sorrows he carried. Yet we ourselves esteemed him stricken, smitten of God and afflicted. He was pierced through for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening for our well-being fell upon him, and by his scourging we are healed. All of us, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way, but the Lord has caused the iniquity of us all to fall on him. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to slaughter, and like a sheep that is silent before his shearers, so he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living, for the transgression of my people, to whom the stroke was due. He gave his assign. His grave was assigned with wicked men, yet he was with rich men in his death. Yet he had done no violence, nor was there any deceit in his mouth.
So, the man of sorrows. We already knew that what was going to happen to him, and just the fact that once again that he knew all this was going to happen, but yet he still came to save us. Okay, let's go to Zechariah 11, 12 to 13.
Zechariah
11, 12 to 13. I think I wrote that down right.
And I said to them, if it seems good to you, give me my wages, but not keep them, and then weigh out my wages 30 pieces of silver. Then the Lord said to me, throw it to the potter, the lordly price, which I was pierced by them. So I took the 30 pieces of silver and threw them into the house of the Lord to the potter.
So we knew what his price was going to be. Let's also turn to Matthew 27, 6 through 10. Yes, sir.
The chief priest took the pieces of silver and said, "It is not lawful to put them into the temple treasury, since it is private blood." And they conferred together with the money, bought the potter's field and the burial place for strangers. For this reason, that field is called the field to others today. Then that which was spoken through Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. They took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of the one his price had been set by the sons of Israel, and they gave them for the potter's field as the Lord directed me.
So that prophecy was fulfilled. Okay, how about Psalms 22, 1? Prophesying that Christ would be forsaken.
my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me, and from the word of my ruin?
And then Matthew 27:46. Y'all feel free to comment on any of this anytime you like also.
He saved others, he cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel, let him come down. If he is the King of Israel, let him come down from the cross, and we shall believe in him. We did. And they did.
And they did.
Some did.
But you know, I mean, the fact, I know the physical pain was horrible, but also just the fact that, you know, that I think maybe one of the greatest things he suffered from was the being separated from the Father
And knowing what he had to go through.
and knowing what he had to go through and asking if he could not go through that. But yet, you know, I think about him praying in the garden, and I know Joe's mentioned this several times about, you know, sweating blood. And if you've ever, I mean, had something bad happen in your life, lost a loved one or anything, you understand that grief and how that really just kind of overwhelms you and affects your body. And you know, when you strain, you just think how hard that was, that he sweated blood when he was praying in the garden.
Just think how beautiful that prayer must have been, those prayers must have been.
Absolutely. And, you know, I just think about that. I've been thinking about that a lot. You know, not,
Excuse me.
go ahead.
What we gotta think about is he's known since the Garden of Eden, where he was going, what was gonna happen. He was there, you know, God said that he had to remove man from the garden because they would come like him as being there at the beginning, become like us, it says in Scripture. So then God had made a statement to Adam and Eve that, you know, he was gonna bruise him, but Jesus was striking, you know, crushes with his heel.
Right.
The devil would strike him. And he knew what his father's plan was since, at least as we can see and read, straight from the time of the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, and that he was a man in human nature for us. Like we know we'd have something upcoming, surgery or something that's, you know, we're not wanting to do really or looking forward to. Sometimes the dreading and thinking about that before it happens is actually worse than what's going to happen. So just think of how long he had to think about that and ponder that. You know, it was a long time. Turn to Psalm 22:8. Yes, sir.
He trusts the Lord, they say, let the Lord rescue him, let him deliver him, since he delights in him.
And then turn to Matthew 27. Matthew 27:42 through 46. Yes, sir.
He saved others, he cannot save himself. He's the King of Israel, let him come down now to the cross. We will believe in him. We trust in God, but God rescued him now. If he delights in him, and he said, I am the Son of God. The robbers who had been crucified with him were also insulting him with the same words. Now, for 6 hours, darkness fell upon all the men, until the 9th hour. About the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? He doesn't know what you want.
So how would you feel? I mean, you're going through this horrible persecution and pain and suffering and death, and then to hear somebody say, well, you say you're the Son of God, so why don't you come down off that cross or, stop all of this. Not only mocking him, but, they were mocking the Father also. So,
We go through some, a sort of the same thing, usually, we're having a hard time about something, and they say, you say you're a Christian, why are you not stopping this or something? And that goes on all the time, for all of us, if we're, and it's not, I'm not, but it's a comparison on our level to
right,
what we're talking about. Because we're gonna make us believe in God anyways, and make us trust, should be making us trust in Him that we'll get through it.
right,
It still hurts when somebody says that to you, you wonder what you get, but I always wonder what's gonna be different with keeping from saying that to me. And so, Jesus Christ, everything He suffered, it was for our learning. I think.
yeah.
And I think that if you don't realize that, a lot of this stuff comes over.
Yeah, it's usually those people that say those things to you are, once again, it's all about them and they're trying to cover up their, shortcomings and all, but it's still, it's still, oh, you claim to be a Christian, well, why, you're doing this or that. But it's just making them feel better because they're striking out at you because of that. But still, you hate to hear that all the time. So
This is the worst time for Jesus, but also the best time for us,
great,
because he went through that
right,
because of us.
right, and he's still going through that today.
Well, people in this world today are doing the same thing to me. They don't believe God is, if He's a God of love, He's not going to do anything. They mock Him by just continuing to live the way they want to, because they're forsaking Him all the time.
Yeah.
They keep putting Him up as a loving God. He is a loving God, but He's a just God and a fair God, and one that will make judgment one day. And they don't read the scriptures and understand that's how this is all going to work. It's not going to work by just saying, "Oh, He loves me."
Right.
That's it.
Just pray this prayer with me, and
Yeah.
everything's gonna be all right.
There's always those people that say, why me? Why is it me? And I say, why not?
Why not me?
Because I'm not above him, and we're to go through our suffering to prove our obedience to his word, that
Right.
one day we will be relieved of suffering.
And really, that's hard to do sometimes, but that's a great opportunity when you're going through some trials and tribulations, illnesses or whatever that, I know from past experience, I've been able to talk to people about God and Christ during those times that I would never have met them if I hadn't had to be there. So, it's the difference in taking those opportunities. And then maybe at that time, people really realize if you're going through that and you still glorify God, and that maybe there's still something to that. So when we have that opportunity, that's a really great time to be able to do that. Not to lash out and be ugly at people. So okay, let's turn to Psalm 22:15.
My strength is dried up like a potsherd. My tongue cleaves to my jaws, and thou hast brought me into the dust of death.
And then, John 19, 28 through 30.
Later knowing that everything had been finished, and so the scriptures would be fulfilled, he said, I am thirsty. A jar of vinegar, wine vinegar was there, so they soaked the sponge in it, and put sponge on the stalk of the apricot plant, and lifted it to Jesus' lips. You want 30?
Yes, sir.
When he had received the drink, Jesus said, it is finished. With that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit.
So have you ever been thirsty? I mean, really thirsty? I mean, we've never suffered this kind of thirst that he's talking about. So can you just imagine that? You know, he's hanging there, nails pierced through his hands and his feet, and he's suffering and he's thirsty, and, you know, then we know what happened. So, I mean, he went through that for us.
He had already been beaten. Before they put
He
him
had
in
been scourged, he had been beaten.
crown of thorn on the head.
Yeah, I'll get there in a minute too.
Well, you know,
Yes,
thorns got hurt, man.
yeah. Yeah,
For
absolutely.
sure, nobody else is gonna feel that. Nobody.
I'm not sure I would.
We go through the beat, probably. Couldn't make it through the beat.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, he knew that was gonna come. He knew that, what was gonna happen exactly. Let's go to Psalm 22:16. I'm sorry. Yes, 22:16.
For dogs encompass me, company of evildoers encircles me. They have pierced my hands, my feet.
And then John 19:36 and 37.
For these things came to pass, that the scripture might be fulfilled, not a bone of him shall be broken. And again, another scripture says, they shall look on him whom they pierced.
Have you ever hit your thumb with a hammer, or unfortunately, like some people I know, have shot a nail through your finger with a nail gun? And know how that feels, and then just imagine. And I don't think those were probably 16 penny nails either, you know. They were,
Spine.
yeah, it was something big.
I adhered to being a railroad spine.
Yeah. How, you know, how would you even survive that? I don't know if we could even survive that.
Most people would have passed out. 99.9% of people would have passed out.
Yeah, for the blood issues with it.
Yeah, I mean, probably most of us probably, you know, die from blood loss.
So many people don't understand that the Romans had this down as an art. They knew where to put this nail where he wouldn't just bleed out.
Right.
Because they're split artery right there with the vein. They knew exactly where to place that, where he would suffer. Because they loved that suffering on the cross of people dying like that.
Yeah. Yeah. How could you even dream something up like that?
Well, you know, the Romans capitalized off the physicians. They the one that formed that art, the crucifixion.
Sure.
And the Romans made it an art.
Yeah, they knew exactly what to do where they could still get air in, you know. I think that's when they would break their legs, right? So they could still
And you had to cut it short.
breathe or cut it short if they wanted to. So I just can't imagine going through that, and then, you know, for us, for sinners, I mean, you know, he was perfect, but yet he came and did that for us. So let's go to Mark 15:17 through 19. Somebody have that?
And they dressed him up in purple, and after weaving a crown of thorns, they put it on him, and they began to acclaim him, Hail, King of the Jews. And they kept beating his head with a reed, and spitting at him, and kneeling and bowing before him. They didn't just put the crown of thorns on him, they beat it in.
Yeah. Can you imagine, I mean, I have some, anybody know what a honey locust tree is?
Yeah.
They have thorns on them about that long. I had some that hang out over where I'm mowing, and I didn't need to cut them, but I went through the other day, and one of them ripped my arm. That's kind of what I picture this crown of thorns. I mean, it wasn't just like the little green ones, which still will tear you up, you know, the little ones that come out of the ground when you're trying to clear something out, how they chew you up. But it's physically painful, but then emotionally also. You know, they were fake bound to him. They were, just wasn't just the physical part, probably maybe the emotional part may have been one of the worst things that happened to him. And they beat him on the head with they call it a reed, but I assume it's something almost probably like a bamboo. You know, if you've ever been hit with that, it's not. And then they beat those thorns in there and then hit him over the head with that reed. Did you look like you were going to say something?
Well, if you ever trek very much bottomlands, you run
Yes.
into these thorns, and you'll think everything's all right going through there, and then all of a sudden you feel this deep pain. And when they bury deep, but they're hard to get out.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't pull right out.
Right.
It's worse than having, as bad as having a big old splinter come off where you putting a racket or something up in your hand. If you start trying to pull it out, the pain even gets worse.
Right.
And a lot of these thorns like this had
Almost like a fish hook.
but they also had a chemical on them.
Yeah.
I can't get the word out, but poison on them that they protected themselves.
Right.
A lot of different things they could have had over there that they used for this crown of thorns. But
Yeah.
you anybody ever been in an attic where they had to work, you get that you're up there and you hit your head on all the nails going through the roofing, you understand about how it hurts.
Absolutely.
And you're gonna bleed.
I was gonna say that a scalp wound just, you
Yeah.
bleed profusely. You know, there's nothing there but a bunch of blood vessels and all, so.
Well, what?
And you know that didn't just, that went, you know, was heading into its skull also. I mean, you know, what just because you think about, there's not much room for those thorns to go in there and stay. So, I mean,
Right, it's going to tear out.
so, I know we kind of pass over that a lot of times about the crown of thorns, but
You just,
It wasn't gently placed on him.
no. No, and I mean, they could have done anything else but other than that, but once again, they were trying to inflict maximum pain and, you know, by putting a crown of thorns on his head instead of something else, so.
and these people, they did this, delighted in this.
Yeah.
They, you know, and I think about when they stand before God, are they gonna just say, well, I was ordered to? I think,
Right.
I'm glad God had got to handle that, not because my heart was saved to say something completely different. But those men, that, they didn't flinch one bit doing that harm to him, because they thought he was a rabble rouser, he was a problem to Caesar. And, you know, all the way up into the cross, you know, they made a mockery of him all the way to the cross. So,
I'd have to almost consider those folks sociopaths.
Yes.
I mean, because you look at what they did, that would, sadomasochist too. I mean, how could you do that to another human being?
The good thing was, I'm thinking some of them were there on Pentecost. And Peter preached to them and told them they could be forgiven.
Right.
And out of those 3,000, there had to be some that were personally involved in some of this. And then 5,000 a few days later.
Right.
It's amazing that God can forgive that because of what they did.
Yeah, I think about that a lot.
I think about the Pharisees that knew that he was the Son of God that wouldn't speak up.
You know, if they didn't repent, you know what their fate is going to be.
They were standing there in the crowd, and they knew he was the Son of God, and they hung him on the cross.
But it was also a me thing for them, what's good for me. Okay, let's go to Psalm 31:11.
I was a reproach among all mine enemies, but especially among my neighbors, a fear to my acquaintance. They that did see me without fled from me.
And then Mark 14:15.
Fourteen, 15,
Yeah, 50, yeah, so
50.
yeah, 50. I didn't enunciate that.
All left and fled.
So he's going through all this physical abuse and pain. And yet, all the people that profess to be on his side, what they did. How's it feel to be abandoned?
Not good.
Just normally, but, being where he was.
When he stood before Pilate, he was by himself. He was going to be separated from his God, his Father, and he was separated from his family he had created here on this earth. He was standing alone. And just think about the weight that would be on an ordinary person to get him standing there. So
Can't imagine that. I mean,
we can't put ourselves there. We just can't fathom how he handled all that.
no. Let's go to Matthew 26. Somebody can get that read. Matthew 26, 31 through 50. 50. I'll try to do better.
What did you want to start?
31 through 50. Yeah.
And when they had mocked him, stripped him of his robe and put his own clothes on him, and led him away to crucify him. And they went out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name, and they compelled this man to carry his cross. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of skull, they offered him wine to drink mixed with gall, but when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his garments among them by casting lots. Then they sat down and kept watch over him there.
Is that 26, 31 through 50?
No.
Oh, I thought it was
That's okay. It's still good stuff. Yeah, 26, 31,
Maybe a different chapter.
31 through 50.
I don't know if I can find it.
Yeah,
Then Jesus said to them, "You will fall away because of me." Is that what you're looking for?
yeah.
For it is written, "I will strike the shepherds and the sheep of the flock will be scattered." But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee. Peter answered him, though they all fall away because of you, I never will fall away.
Right.
Jesus said to him, truly I tell you, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said, even if I must die with you, I will not deny you. And all the disciples said the same. Then Jesus went and with them to a place called Gethsemane. And he said to his disciples, sit here while I go over there and pray. And talking with Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, my soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch for me. And going a little farther, he fell on his face and prayed, saying, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. And he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, so could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. Again, for the 2nd time, he went and he prayed, my Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done. Again he came and he found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So, leaving them again, he went away and prayed the 3rd time, saying the same words again. Then he came, and his disciples said to them, sleep and take your rest later on. See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand. While he was still speaking, Judas came, one of the 12, and with a great crowd with swords and clubs, the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying to them, one I will kiss is the man, seize him. And he came up to Jesus at once and said, greetings, Rabbi. And he kissed him. And Jesus said to him, friend, do what you came to do. Then they came up and laid hands on Jesus and sealed him.
So what if we were in that group? What were one of those apostles? We were dog tired, hard to keep our eyes open, and the Christ came and asked you to stay away for him. Would we be able to do that? You ever thought about that? And how that made him feel? Once again, wasn't physical pain, but
But he knew.
he did know what would happen, but I still can't imagine it hurt any less when it did happen.
I need to ask you a question.
Yes, sir?
This is mine, okay?
Okay.
Verse 34. Said, for the rooster crows, you deny me.
Yep.
Didn't the King James Version say, before you crow twice, you want to deny me 3 times? Is that right, Joe? You remember?
Could we,
The King James Version.
I had the New King. Mine
That
says
is now before the cock crows, thou shalt deny me twice.
That's the King James Version?
Yeah.
Well, I swore
It might be in another.
Oh, it might be another verse.
It might be marker, I mean, it might be another account.
But I know I have read that somewhere where it says, before the rooster crows twice.
Right.
Or I drink it. Something.
Okay, let's go to Mark 14, 66 through 72.
When I had made it search that,
No, you're fine.
Mark 14:1.
66 through 72.
Yeah, that's where it is.
Yeah.
Before the rooster crows twice, and 93 times. I thought I read that somewhere.
Now, as Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came. And when she saw Peter warming himself, she looked at him and said, you also were with Jesus of Nazareth. He said, no, I neither know or understand what you're saying. And he went out on the porch and the rooster crowed. And the servant girl saw him again and began to say to those who stood by, this is one of them, but he denied it again. And a little later, those who stood by said to Peter again, surely you are one of them, for you are a Galilean, and your speech shows it. Then he began to curse and swear, I do not know this man of whom you speak. The second time the rooster crowed, and then Peter called to mind the word that Jesus had said to him. Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. And when he thought about it, he will. So, Peter. Yeah.
So what caused him to die? I mean, I don't understand the explanation.
I think he was afraid that would drag him into the whole thing too.
Yeah.
Since he was part of the inner circle.
So, how about being betrayed by those who profess to love you and to do anything and to die for you? Yeah, when the rubber meets the road, they can't hang.
Peter had already tried to defend him with a sword.
Yeah. But, you know, it's like, no big deal because it was gone, right? So let's go to John 19, 25 through 27.
And standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother, the disciple whom he loved, standing nearby, he said to his mother, Woman, behold your son. And he said to the disciple, Behold your mother. And from that hour, the disciple took her to his own home. How far do you want to go?
That's good. Just imagine that. You're hanging there and your mother's there watching all that. I know, but I just think about that. I think about my mom and I know what she would have felt. And how painful that would have been to me.
I'm just thinking painful it is if you were talking about her, if you just don't come down there. But, you know, I mean, think about if you could come down.
Right.
You know, she probably knew
She,
sort of what was gonna happen to him too.
she had,
I'm sure she was familiar with the prophecies.
Yeah.
And she could see these things happening. She kept them in her heart.
Right.
She could see those things happening. So I'm guessing she wasn't 100% surprised
Right.
that this was happening and she had determined to go with him.
But that makes it no less painful.
No, maybe more, because she had thought about it. Yeah.
it wasn't like it was a surprise to her.
So, do we really think about when we sin, that the pain that we're inflicting on the Christ every time? I mean, that's what started me thinking about all this, and really kind of pains my heart sometimes that I don't think about that the way I should. So, like I said, I know we think about it in commune every Sunday, but I just think we need to think about what we do every day. So, with that,
One thing that you got everything that Jesus went through on the crucifixion has a foreshadowing of what hell will be like. Everything that he's suffering, we will suffer if we don't go to heaven.
right. Thank you all.